Steak. Bubble. Steak.
Stand by for gun 5, you're back.
Hang it on 5!
Fire 5.
Create? 3,000, okay.
No way, 4,000.
Let's continue vigilante analysis. Risk of collision to exist. Recommend maintaining course and speed. Power pressure started.
Meanwhile, North Korea unveiled a photo that captured the attention of the world. It shows that the regime may be close to completing a new type of submarine-launched ballistic missile. Kim Hyun-bin zooms in on the development, which could further escalate tensions on the peninsula.
A recent photo unveiled by Pyongyang indicates that the regime is close to developing a new submarine ballistic missile known as the Pukguksong-3. The chart shows the structure of the SLBM displayed behind North Korean leader Kim Jong-un during his visit to the Chemical Material Institute at the Academy of Defense Science earlier this week. Many experts believe that North Korea could be in the final stages of developing the missile.
In a recent video, Pyongyang released footage of possible body of a Pukguksong-3 SLBM, so I believe it is near completion.
Earlier this year, the regime fired a new intermediate-range SLBM known as the Pukguksong-2, which is known to use a solid fuel engine. North Korea is trying to perfect the solid fuel engine since this makes it harder for satellites to detect the missiles before launch. Experts say that the regime could have even test-launched the Pukguksong-3 engine in their recent cold-launch test in late July.
I believe the recent 3 cold launch engine tests from the regime were from the newly built SLBM.
Experts say North Korea will consider the most effective date to maximize their provocations when planning to test launch the new missiles. Kim Hyun-bin, Aria News.
Last guy down, hatch are shut. Watch that guy tip. Right.
Modified pilot party station.
Early net. Yes, sir, count eye.
Pilot, it's a Torino, the ship's ready for that with the following attention of some type of
So, we're just waiting on the engine signal to go off.
Today, South Korea and China mark a quarter of a century of diplomatic ties. To celebrate the occasion, the two nations' leaders exchanged messages of congratulation. According to Seoul's Foreign Ministry, President Moon Jae-in said the bilateral relations improved and matured rapidly as the governments and their respective people's efforts, communication, and cooperation cultivated mutual understanding and trust. He expressed hopes that ties will further develop into a, quote, substantial strategic cooperative partnership. In response, Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed the importance of strong bilateral relations, saying he hopes to advance ties and added the two nations will be able to handle their differences appropriately by solidifying mutual trust.
It's a further testing, it's a further ratcheting up of Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, to leverage the West for talks. At the same time, he is improving his missile capabilities. It was really basically an intermediate ballistic missile. It could not have reached the United States. And we've been absolutely stalemated on any policy progression with respect to North Korea.
Clearly, we don't want to see a nuclear war happening on the Korean Peninsula that would quickly expand into other parts of the Asia Pacific. But I have to say, as an American citizen, that the United States is showing a lot of hypocrisy over this issue. Clearly, the United States is doing something far greater in terms of its capability than North Korea is. So the U.S. complains and screams about North Korea, but is doing essentially the same thing.
North Korea, with its back turned to the rest of the world, the reclusive state is focused mainly on its bargaining chip, its weapons program. In terms of missile development, it's been pushing ahead at a faster speed than ever before. Their latest test launch proved the regime's nearing a level where it can strike the U.S. mainland with nuclear-tipped ICBM. In our news features tonight, Oh Jung-hee illustrates how far the Hermit Kingdom has come in nuclear warhead miniaturization and missile atmospheric re-entry technology.
북한이 ICBM 탄도미사일을 완성하고 거기에 핵탄두를 탑재해서 무기화하게 되는 것을 레드라인이라고 생각합니다. 지금 북한이 점점 그 레드라인의 임계치에 다가가고 있다고 생각합니다.
During the decades-old tug-of-war with North Korea, the general understanding of North Korea crossing the line has been the regime being able to strike the continental United States with a nuclear-tipped ICBM. How one arrives at that assessment is complicated, but the North's second ICBM test in late July did suggest that it might be possible.
North Korea has shown us that its missile can fly up to 7,000 or 8,000 kilometers if launched on a flatter trajectory that can reach the western coast of America. Pyongyang's final destination is Washington, the center of the U.S. mainland.
To make that happen, there are two crucial technologies Pyongyang needs to develop. First, having a light enough nuclear warhead or strong enough engine to reach long-distance targets. And second, having the missile successfully re-enter the atmosphere. How far has North Korea come in these two technologies, and what's the international community's assessment? To increase the missile's airborne distance, the nuclear warhead has to be as small and light as possible. According to the U.S.-based Washington Post, a confidential U.S. Defense Intelligence Agency analysis early this month suggested that Pyongyang has produced a miniaturized nuclear warhead. Japan's defense white paper also wrote the North may have miniaturized nuclear warheads. The ideal weight of a nuclear warhead designed for an ICBM is generally seen to be around the 500-kilogram range. But even if the warhead isn't at the ideal weight, experts say if the engine's strong enough, Pyongyang's missile can reach long-distance targets.
If the North can fire its missile to the U.S. with its current engine, that means the North has lightened its warhead enough. I've conducted a virtual simulation after the recent launches. The North's missile can carry a 700-kilogram nuclear warhead to the U.S. with the engine it has now.
The North's ICBM may be able to fly far enough, but it seems the regime hasn't completed missile re-entry technology as of yet. An ICBM usually flies 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers off the ground, and when it re-enters the atmosphere, it falls at a speed of 30,000 kilometers per hour. The missile has to endure frictional heat of 7,000 to 8,000 degrees Celsius, as well as massive pressure and vibrations to protect the nuclear bomb inside for successful detonation.
The missile's nose cone has to be thoroughly designed to ensure 50 times the usual gravitational force. And no matter how much you develop a rocket engine, it can't be perfect because it can fail so easily with only the smallest of errors. Also, it's very rare to put the technology into real use after a few tests.
In order to fall into nearby waters, the North's Hwasong-14s were launched at a steep trajectory to reach 2,800 and 3,700 kilometers off the ground during July's tests, much higher than usual ICBMs. Many say that is the reason why the North's missile launch failed to demonstrate successful atmospheric re-entry. The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency assesses that North Korea's ICBM re-entry vehicles may perform adequately if flown on a normal trajectory, but skepticism still remains.
They haven't demonstrated that they have anywhere near a reliable launch capability. for an ICBM or even an intermediate range ballistic missile that could target Guam. What I would expect is they'd want to do several more tests that would involve a long distance and a reentry vehicle coming back in, because in the end, the technology or the engineering of reentry vehicles is very much a hands-on development. I mean, theory can work to a certain point, but you really just have to do it over and over again and see what works and doesn't work. And
a photo released by North Korea's state media on Wednesday hints that the reclusive regime is on its way to developing another three-stage ICBM Hwasong-13, which can fly even farther than the Hwasong-14 missiles launched in July. It seems there's not much time left until Pyongyang completes its desired level of nuclear and missile power, with experts expecting the re-entry technology to be completed within the next few years. 오정희, 아리랑 뉴스.